Hello guys, welcome to my channel Code Doctor. I am Saurabh Saxena, working as a full stack developer at Booking.com. In today's video, we're going to have a candid chat with one of the software engineers at Google. His name is Kevin. He's going to bring a lot of values today in terms of for the candidates who are preparing for interviews or who wants to know how top engineers work. So there are different questions which I have for Kevin, and let's see what he says about it. Welcome to my channel Code Doctor. So guys, Kevin is here to guide us on how to prepare coding interview and also some few tips which like how top engineers work. So basically we'll be walking through with a basic intro of Kevin, and then we'll be going through how to prepare for coding interview, which will be like for freshers or maybe for senior developers. And then we will have some generic questions for Kevin. So before further ado, let's have Kevin on. And Kevin, can you just give a brief intro about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for having me on your channel. So guys, my name is Kevin Murimi. I have a background in computer science, and my most recent role is working at Google Kenya on Project Link, which is aimed at providing fiber and Wi-Fi infrastructure to African countries that don't have enough of both.
Perfect. So Kevin, can you please tell us about like how one should prepare for coding interviews? What are the major steps, like step-by-step preparation plan for any fresher or senior developer?
Yeah. So I think you shouldn't only start preparing when you've been invited or been requested to interview for a certain company. You should normally do it so that the interview can always find you ready for the coding interviews, basically. And for this, we know there are three interviews. So there's the coding interview, there's the system design, and there's the behavioral interview. And all of them, have different tracks and ways on how to prepare for them. So I'll just go through each of the interviews and give the steps I take to prepare for each of them, right? And the first one I'll start with is the coding interview. So for this one, I normally go with lead code as my first option. And the thing I like about lead code is their discuss section or forum, which I find quite informative compared to other algorithm question sites, right? And the thing about this discuss section that they have is that you find different approaches to solving the same problem, which not only strengthens your knowledge or makes you better at data structures and algorithms, but also gives you that way to come up with new approaches. The more you see different approaches, the more diverse you become in terms of how you approach coding interview problems, basically, or even algorithms that you have to write up daily at your place of work, right? So the other site that I normally use, but obviously not as much as I use LeetCode, is HackerRank. It's actually similar to LeetCode, just with a few differences in environment, the environment which you write up your code on, and even the structure of the questions. It's a bit different, but all the other than that, it's pretty much the same thing. All right. And then, so both of these have premium and standard solutions that you don't pay for. And for the premium, you get to have things like mock interviews. You get to have access to sets of questions that are commonly asked in certain companies. For example, if you're interviewing for Facebook or Google, you get a compilation of questions that have been asked at in previous Google software engineer interviews. The other resource I use a lot is Kids for Geeks. I find it quite informative, especially because of their depth and width in terms of covering, algorithm questions. And then another one that I like to use because it keeps me always busy in terms of the algorithm questions is daily coding problem. So this is the website. You can just Google that up. It's a website whereby you can subscribe using your email and they'll send you a question that's been asked in a real interview before at a certain company every day, each and every day, which makes you, keeps you on your toes in terms of coding problems. Because you get to solve a different coding problem each and every day. And these coding problems that they send to your inbox are tagged in terms of the level of difficulty and also the company that the questions were asked at.
Awesome.
I think that's it for coding interviews. But another thing I'd like to add in is maybe the YouTube channel that I normally my go-to YouTube channel rather for coding interview solutions. Because when you see someone do it on video, it's a better way of learning. It's more intuitive. And for this one, I have two that I normally refer to a lot. So the first one is Kevin Norton's YouTube channel. So he does or he solves coding interview questions on that channel pretty much every other day. And then there's another one called Kat Racket's blog or blog, whichever. That's also on YouTube, which has a nice or a very good collection of playlists by company. So questions asked in each company aggregated into one playlist, one single playlist. So that's pretty much it for coding interview problems. And then for the system design, what I go for is normally there's a blog called Gainlow, which is informative in regards to the system design questions and architecture questions that might come up in interviews. And then there's a course also on educative.io. I think both you and I have used that course.
Yes. That's a wonderful course.
Talking the system design interview, which is quite informative. And also, articles on high scalability, which I just make sure that every day I read an article on high scalability, the blog. It has very informative articles on real world architecture used in real companies. For example, how the Twitter infrastructure is set up and how they handle or solve certain problems that come up on a daily basis within their engineering departments.
Nice.
And then in addition to that, I also have another one called InfoQ, which they both have a blog and a YouTube channel, which I also find very informative because they have this good collection of talks from industry leaders as far as architecture and system design is concerned. And in addition to that, I also have another YouTube channel called I think Gaurav Sen.
Gaurav Sen.
That's the name. I think you've also used that before.
Yes.
That's also pretty informative when it comes to system design. And I think about system design, I'd like to say what you actually get to apply in a system design interview is what you've been doing in your day-to-day job or your day-to-day experiences as a developer who also does system architecture before they actually start writing code. Right? So I think it's very the fundamentals of this should come from your experiences you should expose yourself to, problems that come up in the workplace. Do not shy away from such problems. Make yourself available to the team to help make architectural decisions. That's basically the advice I'd have for that section of the coding interview.
Makes sense.
Then the other one is the last one, which most people tend to, ignore or not take as seriously as the other two, but it's just as important. It also plays a huge role in determining whether you actually land that job that you think is your dream job or not, right?
Yes.
And for this one, the behavioral interview is what you're talking about. And for this one, I believe the best way to actually do this one is to make sure that, on all your past projects, you're well versed in them. You can actually give an account of your role in those projects, what you actually did. Right?
Makes sense.
Instead of just being a part of the collective or group, you can say what you actually individually contributed to those projects that you have on your resume. In addition to that, you should think about doing peer interviews with your friends or people that are in the same industry as you are, your mentors and everything. And they can interview you on behavioral interview. And one site that I find really good for peer interviews is Rank.com. I believe that's where we actually met with Saurabh. So it's really, really great in terms of behavioral interviews also. And I think another tip I'd have for this, and what I normally do, is I write down my thoughts on the commonly asked behavioral interviews, and go through them before interviews so that I can be able to organize and articulate myself better. Because I feel you might have a lot of content, but then the way you actually express yourself might either put off the interviewer or make them more interested in what you actually have to say.
Correct.
So that's basically my the advice I'd have in regards to preparing for coding interviews.
Nice. And one more thing, like Amazon, like normally few companies do have low-level design, which is around object-oriented programming. So how do you recommend like someone to prepare for OOPS?
Low-level design, So for this one, I think I'd also recommend the same thing as system design. Just make sure that you work on the coding sections too, because that's more important in the low-level design. Right?
Yes.
And the same thing that I said for the system design, what you do on a day-to-day basis in your day job is going to determine how you actually perform in this low-level design. So make sure you throw yourself into problems that come up at the workplace. Do not shy away from them. Make sure you're part of the team. You participate actually and give your input, get feedback on the output that you give. In addition to that, I think there are also design patterns. That's really important. Just make sure you know a couple of design patterns. And you can actually apply them in real life scenarios. And you can be able to identify, what design patterns should be used in this particular, or when tackling this particular problem. Right? Another thing, I think for as far as resources go, I recommend this blog that's called Geeks for Geeks. It has really good solutions for low-level design questions. And then there's also educative.io. I believe there's a course there called Blocking the Low-Level Design.
Yes.
Which, I found quite informative when I've been preparing for low-level design.
Awesome.
So that's pretty much it for LLD.
I think one more thing is like exploring the GitHub projects. Like just go on GitHub and see how open source project has been done. So that also really helps in terms of understanding like what industry standard is and how the low-level design like people do in real world. Right?
Yes. Just perusing, projects of top engineers on GitHub, seeing how they structure their code, how they actually go about solving certain problems, and you will actually start identifying patterns.
Yes.
How code is written. And that will actually make you a better developer and in turn improve your interviewing skills. So you end up killing two birds with one stone, as they normally say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Completely sense.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
For sure.
So, Kevin, how do you keep yourself with the latest technology and trends? How do you keep yourself up to date, like on a day-to-day life?
Yeah. So I think this is a challenge we actually experience in the software engineering industry, because if you do not keep yourself up to date with the latest trends and technologies happening, the latest languages, the latest frameworks, it will come to a point where you'll be rendered redundant, right? Because, for example, in the modern day world, Perl is no longer like the hot language it was in the 90s or in the 80s, right? So to keep myself up to date, I normally use a couple of mediums, among them blogs. And this is one of the blogs that I actually mentioned earlier. I find it very informative as far as the latest trends are concerned. And this is the high scalability blog. I normally make sure every day I just pass by there and read something on it, an article or two, or even more depending on the amount of time I have. And then there's also Medium. So I've subscribed to Medium, whereby they send me the hottest articles or the most recent and most read articles on certain topics that I've subscribed to, sent directly to my email inbox. So that's every morning. I make sure I go through some Medium articles and gain some knowledge as far as the latest trends or the latest information is concerned. Another medium I normally use is YouTube channels, and for this the list is endless. So I have a couple of them that I'd actually recommend to you guys. The first one being InfoQ, that I mentioned earlier. So this talks about mainly architecture, system design, sometimes code, microservices, balancers, all that stuff. And then another one I'd recommend as far as writing code is concerned is Eric Toll's channel. So this one I normally use it to get insights on how to write better code. Another one will be this channel called Fun Function that I normally use for it's mostly JavaScript. And I normally use it to get information on the latest JavaScript trends and how to actually solve the latest problems in JavaScript.
Great.
There's another one also called Think Software. This is also related to system design, which I find very good. In addition to that's relatively new, but I really like the content on there. Another one will be podcasts. So these are quite a couple. There's the software engineering podcast that covers all topics ranging from security to DevOps to automation at the workplace. Software design patterns. You name it. Anything related to software engineering, they cover it.
Wonderful.
And then another medium that I use to get updated on the latest trends and technologies will be Twitter. Twitter has this new feature called I believe, topics. So you can subscribe to topics, kind of like RSS feed. That's the best comparison I can use. And these topics will normally bring to your feed content that's actually related to that topic that you subscribe to. So some of the topics I have on my Twitter feed are cryptocurrency, that's Bitcoin, and the likes. And then cybersecurity, augmented reality, any topic that you can think of, you can always subscribe to it on your Twitter, and it will show up directly on your Twitter feed.
Wonderful.
So last one will be attending, events and webinars, seminars related to tech, and being part of groups in your local area that are related to are technology related or related to the field that you're in. One that I normally go to a lot or attend the meetups a lot. It's called Nairobi Linux Users Group, NILAG. So it's actually taught me a lot because you get to meet, like-minded professionals in your industry, and you get to exchange, ideas and share information on what the latest trends, the latest problems that you guys have been working on, and how you actually got to solve them. That's what I would say about how I keep myself up to date.
Awesome. That's really helpful. I think there are a lot of references, and for me also, I think there are a lot of you which I have never used, like podcast, the one you mentioned on the Twitter. Awesome. Thanks. Okay. If there is something new technology you need to learn, so what are the key steps that you take? Because people used to get lost when there is something new they need to learn, right? So what's your tips for those students and graduates and developers who want to learn new technology?
So for new technologies, I understand, it's easy to get overwhelmed because you have to, when you're learning a new technology, you have to absorb or soak up a lot of information in a short period of time, which can be overwhelming and tiring at the same time. But, when you follow the right procedure or the steps to actually learn this new technology, then it becomes a whole lot easier. One thing I do not recommend on this is, straight going or jumping onto Stack Overflow and trying to hack your way around the technology by copying, solutions done by other people and pasting it in the code. I believe the steps are you should start by going through the official documentation. The reason I say this is because the people or the developers who actually wrote or came up with the framework or the tool that you're using or the language that you're trying to learn on are best placed to actually give or guide you on the first or the initial stages of that learning that new technology that you're learning. And then, after this, I would actually scrape around the internet for, example implementations, just to see how other people that have attempted to learn this technology before me actually did it. For this one, the resources are many out there. There's GitHub, there's Bitbucket. I mean, you can always find an implementation somewhere on the internet of that new technology that you're learning, because I am pretty much sure that you won't be the first person who is actually trying to write or work with that tool or technology that you're trying to pick up, right? The other thing I would go to would be YouTube channels. And this is simply because I find video more intuitive as far as learning new things is concerned. Because seeing someone actually doing it step by step, I feel does a whole lot for me compared to someone reading it on a blog or on GitHub, reading someone's code. I feel seeing it on video actually helps a lot in my learning curve. or my learning process of new technologies.
Correct.
And then last but not least, my last resort is normally Stack Overflow and Reddit.
Okay.
And this is for when, I've tried finding solutions on all the other platforms I've mentioned to no avail. So now I resort to Stack Overflow and Reddit, which will normally have, different people answering or helping you solve different problems.
Yeah.
And another word you mentioned here would be IRC channels. So, for example, I remember when I was new to, Docker, I was trying to pick up, microservices and how to actually build Docker images and everything. So I went through the official docs, but still I wasn't, I felt like that didn't help me a lot in learning Docker, because I was experiencing problems with the Docker socket. I didn't know what to actually do to make it stop throwing errors that I couldn't find solutions for on the internet.
Yeah.
So what I did, I just joined the Docker IRC channel, and I posted what I was experiencing, and right there, like pretty much 10 guys were ready to explain to me how to actually solve that problem. Because most of the time, an issue you're experiencing when tackling a new technology, another person has already experienced that problem and overcome it. You can be rest assured that's happened.
Yeah.
So as long as you know the right medium or the right place to consult or ask for help, you're pretty much sorted on that front.
Yeah.
So that's my process of learning new technologies.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, and Kevin, what are the key technologies you work on a day-to-day life?
Yeah. I think I would go by the category of the technology. So I'll just start with the language. The language is rather that I use on a day-to-day. Obviously, there are others that I use for other tasks that I won't mention here, but because here I'll just cover the languages that I use frequently. And the first one will be Python. So I use this for all data science related skills, or automation of scripts, and some DevOps, because I love doing DevOps, even though that's not my role. But I use Python for some of the automation while doing DevOps. And then I also use Java. So this is what I mainly use to write out my backend services, because that's my main. That's what I do a lot, right? Backend engineering. That's the main thing I do at work. Obviously, there's a bit of front end here and there, but I lean towards the backend side of things. And then, for my front end needs, I use vanilla JavaScript and Vue.js a lot. Yeah, so that's it. And then for the tools I use, I go with Kubernetes, hand in hand with Docker and Ansible. So these are mainly for my microservice needs, all my microservice needs, because that's what we mainly use to deploy software where I'm currently at. In addition to that, for configuration management, there is also a lot of chef use, because we have some in-country clusters or in-country nodes outside of the cloud that we manage. So for that we use Chef.
Yeah.
And then there's obviously others like Heartbeat, HA Proxy for the load balancer, Nginx for the web, also as a load balancer.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, and there's also the ELK stack, Elasticsearch, Kibana for. Yeah. This is normally used for logs. So indexing and searching logs, and that whole pipeline basically, or being able to visualize logs and collect or save configurations for network equipment, basically. And then there's obviously the whole GCP suite, Google Cloud Platform suite, from App Engine to Stackdriver for logging or log analysis or debugging. And then there's things like PubSub. This is like the cloud platform equivalent of Kafka, Apache Kafka. And then, the whole range of Google Cloud Platform tools. I know my TensorFlow also sometimes. And then for, tickets and tracking bugs in software, we use Google Cases. I think that will be the full set of tools that we normally use. So for CI/CD and version control, these are mostly internal tools that we use.
Wonderful.
So that will be it.
Yeah. Awesome. Kevin, can you share us what is the hardest problem you have solved, and what was the problem it was?
The hardest and hard problem I've come across will be one that we had to do optical character recognition of the numbers on a mobile phone top-up voucher.
Oh, wonderful.
So we normally have this thing in our country where when topping up your mobile phone for talk time, you have to enter like a 14-digit unique code that's, on a mobile voucher that you have to scratch to reveal. And so we were trying to make, an application, an Android application actually, which would enable people to just scan that number with their camera instead of having to manually key it in on the keypad, and then, have it load the talk time or airtime automatically. And so the challenge that we came across here was the fact that, the font used on that particular voucher or on those particular vouchers was not one of these commonly used fonts around the internet that you can easily, use it or use another font to train your model, and then it will be able to easily recognize that font. So we had to do a couple of hacks here and there, but eventually we were able to get around the whole problem. It was a bit hacky, but we were able to work around it, and it's actually now is being used.
Awesome.
But gaining popularity. That's how I put it.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it was a really informative session, Kevin. Really learn a lot from you as well. Like for me, I think students and developers really gonna be finding helpful for preparing for interviews, or maybe people. A lot of developers also had. Those people will also had some problems in starting with new technologies, and your guidance and the tips will really gonna helpful. So thanks a lot. Thanks for coming and joining us, and looking forward to you maybe some more advices in the future.
Yeah, definitely. The pleasure is all mine, by the way.
Okay.
Thank you for having me on your channel.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.